Hello and good morning. It's Sunday, the seventh day of the month of Av, and it is the fourth day of the month of August, I believe. Is it the fourth?
That is correct.
It is the fourth. Okay, we are in the book of the Four Worlds, and we are on page 28-29, and your attention will help us begin. And so we studied until now about the first world. It's called a world, and in Hebrew it's called the world of Atzilot, or Atzilus. Atzilus, he described in two different ways. One of them means emanation. So it is really a godly world because it feels the godly emanation. In that world, whatever is in that world, whatever comes out of that world, is very connected to the emanation of God. It's like as if God is in there. Although it is, on the other hand, a world. World means limited. And so we went through a long discussion that when you talk about the essence of God, there is no different definition, because any definition would automatically make it limited. So if you say God sees, well then if he sees through, how does he see? He sees, but he doesn't hear when he sees, right? That's limiting God. Or God stands. He can't stand because if you stand, you don't sit. And if you don't sit, and then you're limited to not sitting. So that essence of God, that is beyond definition, beyond understanding, beyond anything, is the essence of God. Comparable to the essence of the sun, where the sun itself is millions of degrees hot. There is a ball of fiery energy in there that just doesn't stop. And it's, you can't go in there, you can't make an instrument that can go in there, it's beyond, it's remote. However, as soon as you go 100 miles away from the sun, it might be very hot, but it's not the sun anymore. It is a radiance from the sun. And then you can start defining it. How big is the radiance? How high is it? So same thing with God. As soon as the first outside of God, if you will, outside the essence of God begins, then you can begin, although it's very, very heavily godly, and it's got to go through many different filters before it can get to this world that we're discussing now, yet everything outside the essence of God is only a radiance of God. And of course, the closer you get to God, the more unlimited and more godly it becomes. This would be sort of the end of the godliness, when you can actually feel God. And the people who came out of there, whose souls are from there, for example, Moses, and others who are described in the book of the Ari, whose Yortzeit, by the way, was Friday, who was one of the greatest Kabbalists ever, and he buried in Tzfat. He's got his mikveh there, he's got his grave there. When God's up, when we get next year, we will be able to go visit. He describes certain souls of the people, the characters mentioned in the Torah for sure, or even others mentioned in the prophets and scriptures, how they all connect with one another and how you see it implicit in the words. It's just brilliant, deep, fascinating stuff. So anyway, so the Ari says that Moses came from that world, his soul was from the world of Atzilus and others, and I can guarantee you that the Rebbe's soul was a soul of Atzilus, because when you were in his presence, you wanted to be better. You just wanted to do something good. You wanted to please him because you knew that he represented this incredible energy of godliness within him. And you felt elevated in his presence. And you felt, anybody who went there was in like awe of respect for a person like that. It wasn't just for the seat that he occupied. It wasn't just for the previous ones, but it was for him on his own way. So, the world of Atzilus, the first world, is a very, very godly and removed, emanation. World of emanation, meaning that it's very godly. Another explanation, I'm careful to use the word interpretation. Another explanation for the word of Atzilus is etzlo, which means close, next to him. And that, again, indicates that world is next to God, close to God. That was what we did on page 28.
So you're afraid to use interpretation, but all these things are derived from rabbis' arguments and understandings.
No, it's not this.
Okay.
This, there's no argument here. The halacha,
this was never discussed.
Law is discussed that way, and mainly in the Babylonian Talmud.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's discussed that way, it's actually a recording of a discussion.
Yeah.
You don't get the end result in the Talmud. You get the entire process, which teaches. The reason why it's done that way is first of all to teach us that they worked on this. It's a dialogue. You can call it an argument, but it's really a dialogue back and forth. I feel this way, I feel I can understand it that way until the person brings the proper proof.
Like a scientific...
This guy, convention.
Yeah,
It's a guy would stand up and present something, and a few people would say, excuse me, didn't you read the journal here this, and didn't you read the article there?
Right.
It's really a recording of a discussion, Talmudic sages discussion. Because you have books that derive all the law and just put them in law, just one after the next. This is what you can do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what you, the Rambam, Maimonides does that, and others do that.
So where does
But the Talmud gives you the discussion. And another thing the Talmud does this, another reason why the Talmud gives this to us, is to be able to, for us to appreciate that when it came to telling us what to do, nobody woke up in the morning and said, I feel that this is what we need to do.
Right.
This was never a personal preference. I think tefillin should be black. That's my choice. I like the color black. How does that? Your preference doesn't make a difference in how Jews should celebrate, operate, perform any action. So the Talmud is filled with that type of dialogue to give us the appreciation that Judaism and anything that is connected to law of Judaism is not decided by the rabbis. It was decided by the methods that the rabbis used in order to take it out from the Torah. The accepted methods. And they had to prove themselves, and they were challenged left, right, and center, and nothing was left unchallenged in the Talmud. Not nothing. There are certain statements that people make. If they base it on the law, on the rule, and everything else. Anyway, when we study Talmud, we'll heavily get into that. This is Kabbalah. Kabbalah didn't have that type of... You don't have a recording of a dialogue like this in any place. That's why the Talmud is so special, so precious. You read not just the law, but you read how they got to it, how it came about, how did the end begin? How was it? What was the lead up to that? Nothing else is like this. Everything else is stated as fact. Comes along one sage and he says, in the Zohar, let's say, which is the Bible of the Kabbalah, and he says, it says such a verse, this teaches us that this and this and that and the other. Comes along a different sage and he says, it says another verse, and this teaches us this and that and the other. And it doesn't really get into a discussion or an argument. Even the Midrash, which is also from the Talmud, basically states facts. It's stating things that they learned, that they were taught from all the way back from Moses. By the way, there's certain parts of the Talmud that say, how do you know this? And another one says, I have the tradition that came from Moses at Sinai. End of discussion. There's no more debate. Once it's brought forward that this was delivered by Moses orally, okay. It's only the things that we didn't quite know that there's discussions. Like, how do you get this? How do you understand that? Where the Torah isn't clear. Or that the oral tradition wasn't clear. So the fact that the tefillin have to be square, they have to be square boxes, and they can't be oblong, and they can't be this. The Talmud says Moses came from Sinai, and this misses portion, by the way, putting on tefillin. Moses came from Sinai, and he said, this is what it should be. It has to be black, it has to be square, it has to have straps, you have to put it over here, not over here, you have to put it over here, not over here, not over here. And this is oral law. No discussion. There's no discussion about that. Not in the Talmud. Because the Talmud wants you to know what to do. Once the law is made, it's made.
He's asking where this comes from.
Oh, I understand. So the Talmud gives you certain facts. And then when the facts are not quite clear, that we don't know, they didn't have a tradition, they just knew what they did, but they didn't know quite exactly all the details of how do we know this and how. So then the Talmud provides the discussion of how to get there. Kabbalah didn't work that way. Nothing else really worked that way, because it's not law. This is theology, this is philosophy, this is godly, it's Torah. But it's not the law. It's not what you have to do, what you don't have to do. When you tell somebody you have to do this, the person says, but why? So if I told you, you have to use green plates. You said, but why? You said, well, my reason is because I have a decor, and I think green goes with gray, or green goes with blue. And so you say, wait a minute, but I decided that, so this is, you're telling somebody what to do. So there's a question, a discussion. And here's different. This is the difference over here is these are ideas, they're philosophies. and points. Now, if you want to go all the way back, they are based all on the Torah. They're all based on the scriptures. It's nothing. We already went through in the introduction that these four worlds are based on different places that they're found. When God talks about creating a world, He does mention these four terms, and we know from that there are four different levels, general levels. What do they mean? How are they developed? What He's giving you is just a wrap up, a culmination, a final order of stuff that's written here and there and everywhere else. And some of the footnotes will give you some of the references. And that's why the introduction was very important over here. And there's also like an overview at the end of it, because this in particular seems to be a little in fantasy. Worlds, talking about worlds and higher worlds, souls and angels. So that's why the introduction was very, very relevant. You should watch the introduction on the YouTube, because he did the introduction, which was not written by the Rebbe, written by the compiler of this book, the translator of this book, put together certain facts that he states as facts over here, like where they're coming from and how does he know it, and what are the footnotes and what are the sources and so on and so forth. So really, nothing over here is a fantasy either. It's all based on the Torah. It's all based on teachings of Kabbalah, tradition. One book was authored by Abraham. It goes back all the way there. And Abraham was learning with God. He was learning with the higher levels.
Does it all originate from an angel that was one of the main Kabbalah books, Sefer Yetzirah? That was an
Sefer
angel.
Yetzirah was written by Abraham Avinu. But the Ari studied with an angel, the Baal Shem Tov studied with an angel. They studied.
The angel that came to Adam.
The angel that came to Adam, that was Raziel HaMalach, Raziel. And there's a book called Raziel the Angel, which is also Kabbalah. It's all way out of there. And he studied with Adam, and Adam studied with Chanoch, who was one of his great-great-grandchildren. He was a righteous person. And Methuselah was a great righteous, the grandfather of Noah, was a very righteous person. The flood started a week, by the way, after he died. It was delayed by a week to give the time for mourning for him, when he was 969 years old. He died a youngish, he didn't get it to 1,000. Anyway, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood started. He himself was pretty old, and so Noah was the next carrier. And Shem, Noah's son, Sem, Semitic, anti-Semitic, have you heard that word before? Well, Sem, Semitic, is people who are descendants from Shem, or Sem, the son of Noah. That's where that term comes from. And so he was a great righteous person, as the Torah alludes to in the portion of Noah. And Abraham studied with him eventually. And that's how it got down. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, to Moses, and then God gave the Torah, but there was already a strong base before that of philosophy, of belief in God, of trust, of mind, that was some of it which is recorded to us, which we have till today. But everything was taught either by God, or some of these great sages throughout history had an opportunity to study with an angel. Now let me make this clear. They never came out and they said, okay, now we are going to do it this way. That's not what they said. What they did was they showed you how another way of learning, another way of looking at the Torah. It was another direction. So when the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, studied with the angel, he was told, on his 36th birthday, he was born in the year 1698. So do the math, at 1734, on his 36th birthday, he was told that he must not go out to the world. He says, I don't want any. He says, if you don't go out, I'm taking you back. Your purpose is to... So what did he teach the world? New religion? No, he taught the world a new way of looking at things, to bring out the Hasidic philosophy, to bring out the Hasidic method of looking at something, which is a little different than what was there before, and the difference makes Judaism a little bit more exciting and energetic and reaching out to others and that kind of thing. Which was he was the first one to start with the reaching out, get hold of the simple people, the people who are on the fringe, bring them in, everybody is important. That's what he preached a lot. So the people who studied with angels was not to study about a new religion. It's not like somebody going to a cave, walking out and saying, "Oh, I found this tablet in Brigham Young or Jesus or whoever it might be, Muhammad, and let's start a new religion." It was to understand how to look at the Torah and the religion in a more deeper or different type of way. And when Mashiach will come, the prophet says, "Torah Chadasha," a new Torah will come out. A new Torah? What? The old Torah is gone? No, it doesn't mean a new Torah. The Torah, the word means instruction. You'll have a whole new understanding.
And the Christians take that, interpret it as a new religion, Christian religion.
Well, we're not worried about that.
Right.
You know,
That's part
that
of it.
doesn't-
So
that
that's
doesn't-
where that came from. Yeah.
that comes, whatever they have comes from what was given to us, obviously. It's all a distortion of things that are, a misinterpretation, mistranslation, or distortion, either by mistake or intentionally. Either way, the things that we have here, the Kabbalah, are not made from, some kind of fantasy. This guy woke up one morning and he had this dream and he had this. That's not that. It would be thrown out. It wouldn't be accepted as proper. Yet the person who was teaching this had to have an unbelievably holy background, not just a background of knowledge, but a background of behavior. And therefore, when you hear about Kabbalah centers and Madonna and these people, this is nothing. That's not Kabbalah. That's just people taking some ideas and know something, and that's not real. I've read some of their books. Some people were pushing me to accept the Kabbalah stuff. I said, you know what? Give me what they have. I read the book full of rubbish. It's elementary stuff that's nothing. If a person who writes a book about Kabbalah or who preaches or teaches about Kabbalah doesn't look like a Kabbalist, then anything there, or behave like a Kabbalist, then what they're saying is repeated hogwash that somebody has squeezed out their dirty laundry and they've taken it and drank it and said, see, now I know I'm also clean because I have soap in me. It's nothing. That's what I'm saying. Not that they don't know, they may be very smart, but if the Kabbalah doesn't affect the person, and they don't look like a person who knows Kabbalah, don't behave like a person who knows Kabbalah.
It's not just knowledge, basically.
It's a holy thing. And for that one needs a tremendous background. One cannot simply go out there and just do it. A person has to take everything seriously. Kabbalah is the inner part of Torah, it's the engine, it's the oil.
So where does it come from? It comes from these holy people.
Every single
that
person that
understood.
every single person.
Way back. I'm going way
from all the way back till the present day. If a person is not.
Basically comes from the first angel, or Adam, and this and that, and that. That's what Kabbalah means. It's a tradition or continuation.
The word Kabbalah means to receive. Actually, the word means that. In fact, in modern day Hebrew, the word for receipt is a Kabbalah. That's because you receive something, so you receive a documentation that you received something. That's what it means. So you can't do it without you can't just walk in there one day and say, I study with the angel. What does that mean? It has to be a revolution. It has to be, the person has to be respected as that. So when you learn about worlds, we're not just learning that this rabbi sitting there one day saying, I'm going to tell you a good story that I heard once. That's not that. The word, the Kabbalah, the things that they're teaching are all from before. There's nothing here that's not from before. And specifically this particular essay is a letter written by the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, my namesake, and he writes it in a letter to somebody and says, can you please explain it to me, because I've learned all of this, I'm just having a tough time getting it into my head. That's why it's very practical over there. In the next book that we will study from the third Rebbe of Chabad, and he will give us an understanding of the mitzvah of tzedakah in a Kabbalistic way. What happens when you do it? And why is it so important in Judaism? And all of that stuff. And this is based on a discourse that he delivered or that he wrote. And you see from there that he will also bring from different sources, but ultimately he'll make an order out of that particular thing. That's what we do with Kabbalah and Hasidic teaching. Okay.
All the bottom parts is all the sources, and these books are, the Kabbalistic.
Okay, so on top of page 28, we are now at the second world. The first, top, highest world is a world called Atzilus. The second world is called the world of Berea. Now, I just want to remind you that he had brought before that there are 4 letters to the name of God. There's a Yud, and a Hey, and then a Vav, and then a Hey. The Yud is the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. In fact, it's just a little dot. And that Yud represents the most intense and highest level, which cannot be really described, so it's just like a dot. The next letter is a Hey. A Hey is expansive. It goes this way, it goes that way, and it has another bottom to it as well. So it takes up space. And it gives you, but it's lines. It's sort of demarcation lines. I go here, I'm over here, and I'm also over here. This one over here is a little broken, but he's got the width, and he's got the length, and he's got the breadth. He's got everything in the Hey. That's the second letter of God's name. So that letter corresponds to the second world, the world of Berea. Berea means creation. Bereshit. The first words of the Torah, Bereshit, in the beginning, Genesis. Bara, Elohim, God created. That word bara. And the creation, when we use the term created, or bara, or Berea in Hebrew, that represents a something from nothing creation. A brand new creation. It was never here before. Not simply a change of present ingredients. So let's see, the Berea. The world of Berea is the second of the 4 worlds. It is called Berea creation because it is the first entity to exist after Atzilut and because it is a Metziut. 29, footnote 29, Metziut, literally an existent being. We have left it untranslated since its definition is the subject of this letter. The word Metziut means it's there. If you want to, in Hebrew, if you want to say, but this is, how did this happen? Because, well, that's Metzius. It's just, that's how it happened. You can ask questions about how things unfolded, but that's how they unfolded. If you want to know what happened, this is what happened. That's the Metzius. That's what's here. So, reality, you can say that's the truth. That's how it happened. So, but the word Metzius over here does not mean a reality because it is the first physical reality outside of the spiritual. So what's real here? Is the spiritual real or the physical real? Anything that's physical has a beginning and it has an end. Not just in space, but also in fact. In other words, this table won't last forever. At some point it'll break, or at some point it'll get old, it'll get weak, it'll get tired, and it's going to rust, or whatever's going to happen. In 1,000 years from now, this table won't be around. Why won't it be around? It's the nature of things in this world. They just don't last forever. The planets are not designed to last forever. The sun isn't designed to last forever. I mean, it might take a few billion years, and I'm not sure if we have to worry about anything connected to the sun right now. But the bottom line is, it's a limited thing. The oceans, will they last forever? Who knows? Can they be dried up? Potentially, yeah. Water has been known to be dried up in this world. It's happened. So anything physical doesn't necessarily have an eternal, never-ending reality to it, which therefore is not really, really real. The Torah talks about the water that is supposed to be mixed with the ashes of the red heifer. And the Torah says that you have to mix the ashes with mayim chayim, living water. What? Water is dead. Water doesn't have any life. It gives life, but it doesn't have any life. It's not alive. Things are living in it. Things are living from it, things are living through it, but it's not alive. How do you find living water? What is living water?
Still exists.
Moving water.
I remember that.
So the sages say that it has to come from a place that doesn't, they want to take it from a spring because
It's
it's
not stagnant.
Right.
and
in a
so,
puddle.
right. It's not something that's just there. Now, the question is asked in law, in Jewish law, so what constitutes something that is stagnant? For a month? If a river lasts for 3 years, is that considered a live river? Or is that a dead river? How long does it have to be?
7 years, I think is what you said before.
7 years. Good job,
I
there.
remember.
Good student.
Now, that was something that was argued and
I was
discussed,
here for that.
or is that written?
I believe it's in the Mishnah, and there's no Talmud on that Mishnah. There's no, but it might be found in other places. I believe there is a discussion about that, but it's a brief discussion.
So is it after the 7 years?
See, in Africa, there are wide rivers that are completely dry in the summer when if it's not the rainy season. When the crocodiles die every year because the mud becomes so caked and whatever, and the hippos and the animals gotta go to somewhere else. You're gonna watch these nature shows that are unbelievable. So those are not considered proper rivers because they dry. Well, a river means that you're flowing water, but if it dries up within a 7-year period, it's considered a fake river or a dead river. If it's more than 7 years, then it's an anomaly. That's not usual. Then it's something really severe has happened here. Okay, I get it. But a body of water needs to be alive. So, what's the reality? The reality is if something ends, then it doesn't have a reality. It's dead. It's not alive. It's not living. You can say, oh, whatever, well, more than 7 years. Well, that's with rivers. But when you talk about God, spiritual versus physical, the physical is not real. Although Torah says God created the heaven and earth, so it is a reality. Not that we're not fantasizing here. But if you want to term something as a real thing, then it has to be enduring, it has to be existing, it has to be true. Emes is always true. The truth always is true. If truth can be proven that it's not true, then it was never true.
But change is like a normal part of the physical world.
That's why the physical world is not the real thing. That's exactly what I'm saying. Precisely. And something that endures is emes, it's true, can never change. Doesn't change. That's one of the fundamental beliefs of Judaism. One of the 13 principles of faith is that the Torah doesn't change. And people who come along and say, well, the generations have changed, therefore we need to adapt the Torah, then they're missing the point of the Torah. The Torah is consistently true. But I never saw baseball in the Torah. I never saw air conditioning in the Torah. I never saw computers in the Torah. It's there. It's all there. Electricity. It's all there. You just have to find it. And if you stay with authentic Torah, it's all in there.
In the Torah? Wow.
The first word says in the beginning. Beginning, God created. It's the first word. It's about as true as you can get. Anyway,
You've heard of Legion.
So the bottom line is that the Torah is absolutely true because it comes from the true God. It says it's in the Torah. In this week's portion it says it, actually. And this week's portion is everything. One of my favorite portions to say. It's a fantastic portion. Shema, this portion. Ten Commandments, this portion. Exodus, this portion. Intermarriage, this portion. Well, not this week, for this Shabbos. You come to shul and hear the Ten Commandments this coming Saturday, and Larry's going to celebrate it. Gotta come for it. Larry's gonna come get his 80th birthday.
It's for Larry.
Come on, man. That's
reality.
What is it?
It's his 80th birthday?
Yes.
Larry's
Larry wakes up.
Wow.
Yeah.
You gotta come, guys. You gotta come.
I got
It's a big deal. There's gonna be a
The next
major.
Mike.
There's gonna be. I'm not gonna get it. But there'll be services. My son-in-law will be running it. There's gonna be major kiddush and major good stuff in the synagogue. I'll tell you.
Major
Fundamentals of faith. Major scotch is here.
Major scotch.
There is everything that is in Judaism is in this. Faith in God, knowledge of God, study of God, warnings if you don't do right, murder. Everything is in this portion. Ten Commandments: honor your father, honor your mother. All in it. So, and the land of Israel, intermarriage.
Bring it on,
all,
Shabbat.
It's all in this portion. So it says in this week's Torah portion that it's God is a true God. And it says that all over the place, and especially in the prophets, just non-stop. We have to remember and recognize and realize that we are physical and therefore limited human beings, and the real truth God chose to share with us, to give to us, so that we have to hold on to something that's emes, something that's really true. That is the significance of the Torah, and without that, the Torah loses its credibility and it loses its emes. If a person says, we're going to change the Torah now because for whatever reason, then you've lost the foundation. You've lost the whole reality of the Torah. And once you change something, you can change anything. Might as well, Okay, so calling the Metzias as the reality is somewhat of a problem because the physical reality is not as real. Certainly, it's a real thing. It's not the real. However, it is where physical can start feeling something. Even if though you are maybe separated from God, you are now feeling something. In other words, when you get down to the bottom of it, which is this world, we feel like we're separated. We feel like we're a separate entity. We don't have the feelings and the connections to the spirituality that is above us. We don't necessarily feel our soul. Certainly not constantly. We feel it very occasionally. That is what we call a metzias, where we feel that we're something as well. We make choices. We want this. We want that. I know it's really maybe not. I was listening last night. I was watching last night after the Braves game. It was very late at night. They had a guy come in, and so they had a clip of one of the Braves announcers died yesterday. Pete Van Wieren.
Oh,
He's
really?
already retired. He died.
Yeah.
So they had a guy come in to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so one of his colleagues came to talk about him. And so he said something very. I'm listening.
No, I mean listening.
I understand you're not a baseball fan. That's okay.
No.
He's a baseball fan.
Hey.
I'm only kidding. Anyway, so now I forgot why I said this. This guy said about Van Wieren. This is what he said. He said this was. He said, I think this guy was the best announcer in the history of baseball. And I looked at him and said, wait a minute, He said, the reason why I'm saying this is because when you are an announcer on television, it's all about ego. You have to, he says, I'm an announcer, you're an announcer, and I'm telling you that it's about ego. How many words did I say? How many words did they let me say? Did that sound right? It's all about how I can give my way, my interpretation. Here's where I use the word interpretation. How my interpretation sounded. How did I sound? How did I look? And did I befuddle this thing and then I mess up this one? This guy, Van Wieren, he said, taught him that the most important. If somebody comes away from the game and says, "Did you hear what Van Wieren said?" Then you have messed your job royally up. You want a person to come along and say, "This great thing happened in the game. Thanks," but he doesn't have to say thanks to you. You don't exist. That's what he's saying. The person in the batter's box is what counts, and then the crowd, the people who came to watch the game. You should not be there. He said that's why the most humble of announcers I've ever met. That's why he calls him the best announcer. It wasn't about him. It was just about him telling the story. That's what makes a person in this world. We have a lot of ego. We like to see ourselves in print and show and film and in sound, and we like to see our ideas developed and accepted, and it's all about acceptance of me. And in spiritual, it's about what does God have to say? Why do I have to? I'm just a vehicle. I'm just a conduit. I'm just here to help. So, the world of Bria is the second of the four worlds. It's called Bria, creation, because it is the first entity to exist after Atzilut, and because it is a Metzias. Now, how does that mean? If it's a spiritual world, how does it be a Metzias? How is it like compared to a physical and a creation of something from the new thing? Now, what does it mean? So he says over here, although it is a spiritual world and a hidden world, and furthermore, the light of Atzilut radiates there, especially the light of Bina of Atzilut. The word Bina means understanding. Atzilut, of course, is the world on top of it, that great spiritual, godly world. So because it's so close to Atzilut, it feels that godliness, very, very special. Yeah, as I said, the closer you are to the sun, the hotter it is. So they're very close to the world of Atzilut, this world. And the Bina is the understanding. That means comprehension. That means you're getting it. You're not just hearing about it, but you're understanding it. So the world of Berea is receiving not just some kind of energy, but the understanding of it, the comprehension of it. So they are able to connect because they can understand it, they can comprehend it, they're able to connect to that previous world. So despite the fact that it's so close to the higher spiritual matter from a previous level, whereas in Atzilut itself, the light of Chochmah of Atzilut, wisdom, not understanding, but higher than understanding, the wisdom radiates, which is why the world of Berea is called the world of comprehension, because it is able to comprehend godliness in a real way due to its closeness to the world of Atzilut. Nevertheless, it is called the world of creation for two reasons. And those reasons we'll discuss next week. What is next Sunday? Give you something to come back to.
Ponder.
So the world of creation, to summarize, is the second world. It's the closest to the world of Atzilut, and it even understands, comprehends a lot of it, but yet it's considered a new creation. It's called Bria, a new creation. That's for a new week.